All right. Well, so much happened since I recorded the last episode, and I kind of want to just start and check off a couple of things. Number one, the college tourney was crazy. Caitlin Clark obviously did not take Iowa all the way. Carolina did not lose a single game all year. So that's kind of crazy. I just wanted to acknowledge that. And then in the men's, UConn beat Purdue. I might talk about Zach Edey at some point. Is that his name? Edey? I don't really know. I don't follow college ball that much. I just talked about in the last episode that the women's tournament was going crazy, so I wanted to follow up with those things. First topic that I have to actually talk about, I already made a short about it on the channel, so if you didn't see that, you don't know what I'm talking about, but I was randomly just playing MLB The Show. Not a game that I plan on making content with, so just more of a free time game. Like, I think I need to have like a separate thing because I ruined almost 2K for myself, like playing on my own, because then I'm like, well, I have this Outlaws franchise thing, which if, quick plug, if you haven't seen that, it's a banger series. Trying to get those videos uploaded at least weekly, once I get into the swing of things. Kind of got a lot right now, looking for apartments, trying to move. Eventually I'm going to get these things kind of locked down to a finer schedule, but until then, it's kind of just going to be a little sporadic. Anyways, I bring all of that up to say I played Troydan in MLB The Show. I beat him, first of all, which was super cool. It was a really fun experience for me because I was just playing. And the thing about the story is, before I was about to hop on, right, because I wasn't aware that he was even playing. I was just playing on my own game, just going to go play a game of ranked and then, watch the Celtics game. So what I did was I accidentally hit my girlfriend with the remote. That sounds horrible. She asked me to toss it to her. So I grabbed it and I tossed it to her on the bed. You can't see, but my bed is over there. And I accidentally basically hit her in the face with it. An underhand toss, okay, which is important there. I just think it's interesting that, like, if I didn't do that, none of this would have ever happened. Not exactly promoting a great message of accidentally hit your girlfriend and then you'll get matched up with a very popular YouTuber. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what we're going for here. But I just think it's crazy how, like, little tiny changes in a story, right? Like, if I was like, fuck you, whatever, to my girlfriend and I ignored her, I wouldn't have gotten into this game. I don't know what this is. I might not even keep it in. I don't know. I'm just yapping. I just wanted to tell more of a detailed story on it because, I wanted to make a short because I don't make shorts. I don't like making shorts, especially not like taking the content I've already made and making it into a short, because I don't want people to just watch all my short form content and not come to my channel and like watch the long term stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to make long form content, but the YouTube algorithm pushes that short form content a lot more. Like, my video, the short that I made, got like infinitely more views and likes and all that than anything I've ever put out on the channel has, which it kind of sucks, honestly, because I feel like I can't really make the content that I want to make and actually gain an audience at the same time. It's like I have to do those separately. Like, if I want to build an audience, I have to do shorts. I don't know. That just sucks. I'm sure I've talked about it before in some other video, but I'm not a big guy on making short form content. I just am not. It's not something that I enjoy, honestly. Like, I like making longer style videos. I like making series. Like, that's short form content is kind of just the antithesis to, the type of thing that I want to make. And again, I'm never saying that to disparage people who make short form content. I'm just saying, like, the creative aspect of it for me is designed in a way that I'm producing content in a longer format. And so it just sucks because it's like YouTube doesn't really. It used to be different, but the way that it is now, it's not really set up for you to gain a lot of viewers unless you make a lot of shorts. So anyway, all of that aside, point is, I accidentally hit my girlfriend with a TV remote. I went over and I apologized to her, and then I hopped onto the game, and then it was Troydan. And so I looked at the team, and he had pink uniforms, mostly black, but with pink highlights. And I saw Troydan Gaming. I saw the gamer tag, and I was like, no way. Like, there's no way, right? Like, that's just not possible. Like, things don't happen like that. Because I've definitely played like video games before, and I'll get into a match with someone who has like, an imposter username, right? Like they're trying to pretend that they are a popular YouTuber or something. But no, I told my girlfriend, I was like, can you look up Troydan? And then she found his YouTube, found his stream, and again, I already said it in the video that I made, but his stream has a delay. Like, I couldn't cheat if I wanted to, and I didn't want to. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to just enjoy the moment, because things like that are just so cool. You know what I mean? Like, I only really like the story because it's just like, what are the odds of that? Playing like a guy who, not that like Troydan is really famous for one particular video game that he plays, but like, especially with MLB, it's like, that's not his main game. It's probably my main game that I play by myself, but I wouldn't say that it's the game I'm the best at. You know what I mean? The point is Troydan is not like this professional player. The point of the story is not, oh, wow, I beat this guy who's amazing at the game. Like, I think his record when I played him was like 18-37. You know what I mean? Like, he's not a pro player. He's just a guy that's really popular on the internet. But it was really funny because, it's like, I don't ever, like, my girlfriend doesn't just watch me play video games. You know what I mean? Like, she has a life and like things that are way more entertaining than watching someone else play video games. You know what I mean? So it was the first time that her and I had ever like sat here and like experienced that together. So it was pretty cool, honestly. And then, with the stream going, I'd hit a home run and I'd get excited, and then I would wait a couple seconds, and then I would see it pop up on the stream and see how he reacted to it. So it was pretty fun, honestly. Like, one of the most fun moments I've ever had playing video games. It was pretty surreal. I don't know. He talked a lot of shit at the end, which I'm fine with. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, like whatever. I'm just saying like, I'm also not the type of person to instigate that. You know what I mean? I beat him. Like, if he wants to have a rematch and prove, he can back up what he was saying, like, I'm not going to try and go and seek clout from him to set that up. Like, that's just not who I am, unfortunately. I wish I could be that way, but I just feel like if I ever got famous on the internet and I didn't feel like I did it in a way that wasn't in like I don't ever want to like beg for subscribers or for likes on videos. Like, yeah, it's free to do all those things, but I don't know. I don't deserve that inherently, Like, if you like the stuff, you will do it on your own with your own free will, I'm yapping a lot right now. The point is that it was a really fun experience, and I would obviously love to do a rematch, but I'm not going to go out of my way to try and like troll him or be annoying about it. You know what I mean? Like, if it wants to happen, it'll happen, right? So that's my philosophy on it. Anyway, that kind of wraps the Troydan game situation. It was a lot of fun. Obviously, I beat him 5-4. I thought it was a really cool experience. He's a fucking hilarious guy. I love Troydan a lot. Like, I don't really watch him a ton nowadays. Way back when, like, I would watch his pack openings all the time. Like, I loved those videos. He always had like funny suits that he would dress in just for good luck purposes. He was definitely a comfort streamer, YouTuber, whatever you want to say, for a while in my life. So just to know that I played a video game against him and won is pretty cool for me, honestly. All right, well, that actually didn't take as long as I thought that was going to, so I actually have a lot more time here. Something that I found really cool was that Isaiah Thomas just signed an actual contract with the Suns. He's going to be on their 13-man roster for the rest of the season. That includes the playoffs, so that's pretty cool. I haven't gotten to, watch Isaiah play in a long time, and just the fact that he's even going to be on a playoff roster, I think personally is really cool. Especially the reunion in Phoenix is cool, because it was weird. They had like Eric Bledsoe, Isaiah Thomas, and then also Goran Dragic, if I remember correctly, and they had the three of them. And they were trying to figure out how to use all of them. And I believe the trade was Marcus Thornton in a second. And the Celtics got Isaiah Thomas, who obviously became a top 5 MVP candidate, averaged 30 a game, and brought them to the conference finals before, obviously, his hip gives out. And then, never the same since then, which sucks. But at the end of the day, Isaiah Thomas is a great basketball player. I just wanted to mention it, at least, and just say, like, that's really, really cool that he got another opportunity. It's cool that the Maine Celtics are in the G League Finals against the Oklahoma City's G League team, if I'm not mistaken. So that's pretty fun. Maybe a foreshadowing of the next couple finals is. Who knows? Speaking of which, in other news, the Celtics extended Drew Holiday 4 years, $135. That's kind of a big contract. Although I will say they did give Kemba a supermax deal. Not a supermax because he was on the Hornets, so they couldn't have. They offered him a max, though. It was like 4 for $164. So if you think about it from that perspective, and you say, all right, well, Kemba Walker was, playing a different role on a different team. And yeah, he was probably worth that just to be like, all right, well, we lost Kyrie. We'll replace him with Kemba Walker, who's probably a better chemistry guy. Like a lot of people said that Kemba was a good teammate. He's a great guy, good leader, but at the end of the day, it's a different team now. Brown and Tatum have taken the reins. Smart is gone. Like there's the guys that are veteran leadership outside of Al Horford are the best players. You know what I mean? So I think Drew was a good voice in the locker room. I would have been really bummed if they traded, Brogdon and Rob for him and only got a season plus another season, right? Like if he opted into his contract, if they only got that out of him. But 4 for 135 or 136, whatever it was, it's a lot of money. It's definitely a lot of money in the 130s. Like we're talking like 34 a year. So it's technically a pay cut from his player option in the first season, but then it's 3 more years. Like he's going to be like 37, 38. All the people freaking out, like, oh, they chose Drew Holiday over Jason Tatum. It's like, no, they don't. They pay Tatum the most amount of money. It's more than the most amount of money that any other team can give him, right? Because he plays for the Celtics. So he's getting financially motivated to stay in Boston. I mean, obviously Tatum can hit the market unrestricted, but the Celtics do have Derek White's bird rights. So in retaining those two guys, I don't think it's really a question. Like they're going to give those guys what they deserve. And also, if you think about it, Drew Holiday was up for like a 224 over 4 extension. So if you look at it from that angle and you say, all right, well, there's a team out there that probably would have paid him that 224 over 4 instead. So you save yourself about 80. You get the deal done now, going into the playoffs. What I'll say is that if Brad Stevens and Wick didn't think that they could sign White and Tatum after this, they would not have signed Drew. Like Drew is definitely, maybe they like Drew more than they like White, but I don't buy that personally. The Celtics are setting up to be a dynasty. They've locked up the core. This is what they're going to do. They're going to get Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, White, Holiday for, pretty much into 2028. So that's about a 4 year run. You've got those guys locked down now, and you should come out of that with multiple titles. Being completely honest, if they don't come out of it with multiple titles, then they failed. It's the unfortunate reality. The Celtics are too talented. You just won over 60 games for the first time in the Tatum Brown era. They're hitting their primes. So if you don't get 2 rings out of this, I'm not going to lie, it's kind of disappointing. But hey, I'll take 1. I will take 1 because you know how injuries are. All that stuff's unpredictable. I just want them to get 1 this year, and I'll be satisfied. I'm just saying, talent-wise, is it really that crazy to be like the Celtics could win 2 chips in the next 4 years with the roster they have? Like, it's not that crazy, right? I don't know. That's how I feel about it. I'm going to move on. One topic that I have that I saw the other day, it's kind of 2 topics merged together. So the first thing I saw was Stephen A. Smith talking about Quentin Grimes being a great player for the Knicks and how Isaiah Hartenstein is doing great in his bench role, even though Isaiah Hartenstein has been starting and Quentin Grimes got dealt to the Pistons, I believe, at the deadline. So that's kind of concerning. Yes, that's his favorite team, and he doesn't even watch them to know what is going on with them. I think it's a little optimistic of me to say that maybe Stephen A. just doesn't watch the Knicks and he watches other primetime games instead, or he just kind of does his job and watches the games that he's on, and then after that he kind of just checks out. I don't know. The thing that this ties in with is the MVP conversation. at the end of the year, there's just been this huge push for Luka. And I get it. Like, his numbers are really good. And I think, James Harden won that MVP. His numbers were really good. Harden was the 1 seed, if I remember correctly, but he might have been the 2 seed that year. I don't remember, but they had like high 50s wins that year, and he killed it. He had great numbers. People want to talk about, LeBron and them. Like, that was Harden robbing LeBron of another MVP he deserved. And it's like, okay, like, I get it, but LeBron was the lower seed, and that was kind of what people said at the time, is like, he's not the higher seed, and he is not like really having the better statistical season. So for me, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, we screwed Jokic last year and we gave the MVP to Embiid, but then MVP probably should have been Embiid this year if Embiid was healthy. So then it's like, are we giving Jokic a makeup one? Like, who gets a makeup MVP? Who in history has gotten a makeup MVP? And I'm not saying Jokic hasn't had an amazing season, because he has. The season Jokic is having, especially considering he already has 2, he should be getting MVP voter fatigue that we see a lot, and he's not, and that's kind of what bugs me. I don't want it to sound like I'm against the idea of Jokic having a 3rd MVP. I just think it's like, I don't understand. I just don't understand what the narrative is with the MVP. Like, sometimes something amazing will happen, like Westbrook averaging a triple-double, and you're like, whoa, that's amazing. That is an amazing feat. What an accomplishment. He's the MVP because he's doing something we've never seen before. And with Luka, it's like, yeah, like, he's almost averaging a 35-point triple-double. That's pretty cool to think about. It's definitely history. And he's, by my understanding, a top 5 seed. Pretty clear that Mavs Clippers is happening, though. I think they're both locked into 4 and 5. I don't think Dallas has climbed enough, but I think that's the clear matchup. There's a lot of shifting, so I'm going to wait to do most of the playoff talk for, another video. But how cool is it that we get now an even newer version of Mavs Clippers, which, again, still going to break that down in another video, but just wanted to mention, like, if that's what we're getting first round, somebody is going home in the first round that, really shouldn't. This could be a potential. It's at bare minimum, it's as interesting as a second round series. At bare minimum, it's a second round series, and that's tough that one of those teams is going to get first rounded. And I don't know which one it is going to happen to. I got off track. I got a little off track there. What I was trying to make a point about is that Luka, I feel like, is doing stuff that he's one-upping the James Harden season, because Harden averaged a little bit more points, but he wasn't super efficient. And giving Luka his credit, he has been like better defensively this year. He's not a great defender, but he's not playing low effort defense anymore. He's not a bad defender ever. He's never been a bad defender. James Harden's not a bad defender, but he was a low effort defender because he was, offensive usage was just through the roof. So with Luka, he's shown more effort on defense. He's still not a good enough defensive player where I can put him over someone like Giannis or Jokic. Jokic is the best player in the NBA. Giannis is right there with him. I think the thing with Giannis is just I worry a little bit more about Giannis's health, although he has put up 50 in the finals on a bad hamstring. So it's just about availability. I feel like Jokic is one of the most available players in the league out of that top echelon star, and he's won a championship as the best player, and he had an amazing final series that a lot of people didn't watch. Honestly, I'm not going to pretend that I enjoyed that finals, but I was grieving. Okay, the Celtics almost came back down 3-0. They had the most miraculous shot in a Game 6. And then Jason Tatum rolls his ankle, and Jaylen Brown has 8 turnovers, and nobody showed up in Game 7 in the Garden. So I was hurting. I was hurting for a while. I don't think I watched basketball for a month, honestly. That was rough. I put a lot of my emotional investment into this game, and I really, really trust the Celtics more than I should with that. And I've gotten hurt twice now in the last 2 years in their postseason runs. So I'm trying to be more reserved in sports. I get a little toxic on Twitter. Not that I'm necessarily being toxic inherently, but like the toxicity is like taken out of me. I mean, if you go on Twitter, you're gonna find toxicity, right? It's kind of like the little smoke floating from the pie, the steam, whatever that gets in your nose, and you like float towards it. That's kind of like me with Twitter dramas. I get like sucked into this BS argument that makes no sense because I just like am mad that the Celtics lost. You know what I mean? So anyway, I didn't really watch the finals, but I did like eventually rewatch a lot of like late game possessions and kind of just saw, the Nuggets were a great team in the fourth. They executed super well, especially against a team like the Heat, who were not a great fourth quarter execution team in the regular season this season or last year. But in the playoffs, they kind of became a completely different team. So it was an interesting series. Denver made it look a lot easier than I thought they were going to. And, that's the point is like Jokic has won. And for Jokic to have 3 MVPs, I think a lot of people are making that a bigger deal than it should be. Like Jokic is the best player in the NBA right now. Him, Luka, and Giannis are in that tier. Like they're top 3. Nobody else is near them. I like Shea a lot. I really do. He's an interesting player. He's not the MVP, although the fact that his argument for it, his case just fell off out of nowhere. Like he was the guy for a while this season outside of Jokic. Everyone was like, Embiid. And then Embiid got hurt and we're like, all right, well, let's just give Jokic one then. Tatum is not the MVP this year. If he had his numbers that he had last year on this team, he has an argument. He just doesn't have the numbers this year. He's lost a little bit in points. He is averaging more assists, I think, by a little bit, closer to 5 than 4 now. He's upped it a little bit. His efficiency has gotten a lot better. The only MVP case he has at this point is best player, best team. And anyone who's saying that he's not the best player on the best team in the NBA is ludicrous. But Giannis was the best player on the first seed, and he didn't even have any MVP buzz at all. He was 4th, but it wasn't like anyone was actually going to insert him higher than that. They were just kind of like, oh yeah, and Giannis is good. We'll have him 4. You know what I mean? Not really fair to the guy. And I don't think he's going to win another, honestly, because everyone's looking for the new thing. Giannis improved, but it's like the whole NBA has improved. Statistically speaking, everyone is getting better every single year, especially at that top. A lot of these guys haven't reached their primes yet. It's just like, it's really hard to win an MVP. It's really hard. That makes Steph Curry's MVP so much more impressive, that it was unanimous. You have prime LeBron, you've got all kinds of stars at that point in the league, like so many in that time period. And then you just have Steph winning unanimously. They're like, yeah, that's the guy. 30 point per game on the best team, like best player, best team. There we go. 73-9. Did he win it that year? I think he did. I think he won the MVP that year, but that was his second one, if I'm not mistaken. I think the year they actually won the title was his first unanimous one. Pretty sure. I would have to double check that, but I'm too lazy. So if I'm wrong, oops, my bad. Anyway, I think that it's really hard to take the MVP seriously in general, just because there is no definition of what valuable means. The definition I would give is this: the best player that has the highest ability to elevate their team's ceiling. So if you have a player in the league and you look at him like Luka, like you take Luka off the Mavericks, you put Luka on the Mavericks, what does that team look like? They're asking Luka to do pretty much everything. And that's why I would be okay if you want to say that Luka is the most valuable player this year, because what he's doing for his team, statistically speaking, is more valuable than what other guys, statistically speaking, are doing for their teams. But then you get the Jokic people who have like the advanced stats, and the Jokic on-off number thing is super valid. Like when Jokic comes out of a game, the Nuggets are substantially worse. The Celtics are better when Tatum's on the court, but they're still a net positive when he's off the court, which is like, okay, they would still be able to win some games without him. Like they have a team. Not that they would be the runaway first seed, right? Like Tatum raises them from a good playoff team, probably where Cleveland is sitting, right? Like 4 or 5 in the standings. He raises them to the unanimous first seed, right? So when you look at it from that angle, It's like, okay, cool. That's kind of how we can look at that. And you say, all right, well, who takes their team from a low spot to a really, really high spot? And I think this year, that's where I'm okay with Luka getting it. In years past, Luka could not get the Mavs to a high enough seed where I'm like, yeah, like he is getting his team to a higher place than these other players on other teams. Like Jokic in the first place, the only reason that he got the MVPs, he got back-to-back, and he hadn't even won a championship, obviously, because he was going to three-peat. And part of the reason that he didn't get the three-peat was because he hadn't had any playoff success. And then they give it to Embiid, which is like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Then if you're going to say you need playoff success to get a regular season award, which an argument that already doesn't make sense, but then say, okay, person who we just gave 2 MVPs to, we're actually not going to give you this one because you haven't had any playoff success, and we're actually going to, which by the way, does nobody remember that Denver was the team that the Lakers beat in the conference finals in the bubble to then go on and win the championship against Miami in the first place? The last year's final 4 teams is the same as the one in the bubble, for people that were saying that the bubble was a fluke. Just saying. Obviously, the Nuggets won the finals instead of getting eliminated in the conference finals, but the Heat made the finals again. Like, that bubble wasn't a fluke. If anything, the year after was. But that remains to be seen because, the Bucks and Suns might make some noise in the playoffs. So who knows? Bucks are funky. I'm going to have to talk about them a different time. Anyway, getting back on track on the MVP talk, I just think that when you have voters that are not really watching the games, I don't know if Perkins has a vote or not. I know that Stephen A. does. And it's just guys like that who aren't doing the due diligence that they should be because they don't really care about what the players actually look like on the court. They care about the narrative that they can present, and they want to talk about case. They're like lawyers, essentially, voting on this. Like, they're a jury. That's what it is. They're a jury. And I just think that, you don't really have any lawyers in place, right? Like, that's kind of the problem, is you don't have that, and you don't have a real precedent, right? Like, in law, you have a type of case, right? Like domestic abuse or something like that. That was really extreme and out of pocket. And I'm sorry, but that was the first thing that came to mind. So anyway, you think of something, right? Like women's rights, like an abortion, and you talk about over time what the precedent is for a certain situation. And you look back at the precedent and you're like, all right, this is how we do this, right? So the problem is the MVP award has never had an actual precedent. Best player, best team is too simple, and it's stupid, in my opinion, because, Jason Tatum is not the most valuable player this year. He is way better than a lot of people give him credit for, but he's not the most valuable to his team because the team would still be, like, decently good without him. I guess my point is just that it's about who's more valuable in the regular season, and if you don't make the playoffs automatically, like if you aren't a top 6 seed, you just can't be the MVP. You don't have to be the top player in the league necessarily, because if we're giving it to the best player in the league, then Jokic is going to win it every single year. But you do at some point have to say, okay, well, who is helping their team win the most? Who is raising their team's ceiling the most? And I honestly would say, like, Luka is probably the guy who raises the Mavs ceiling the most. And I'm not saying that playoff success should have anything to do with the MVP. I'm just saying the narrative that goes around is that Jason Tatum can't win one because he hasn't had playoff success yet. And you're just like, you keep making these excuses as to why these guys get to win the award and these guys don't, but there's no consistency. And it's just frustrating. And everyone has their favorite player. I'm not going to be a Tatum homer right now. I don't think he deserves the award. I've said that enough times in this episode. Like, I'm just saying that you naturally, when you don't have a reason why he's not the MVP, like, that's frustrating to be like, well, he's not because, are we even sure that he is the best player on the Celtics? Like, come on, dude. Like, let's not say that. Listen, he has a case for it. There's a reason he's top 5 in voting. Should he be higher than 5? No, because Jokic, Luka, Giannis, and Shea all have better cases than him. Unfortunately, Shea is hard for me. People are like, oh, well, I want to see him average 30 again. And it's like, well, didn't he already do it? Like, I know this is the first year he did it on a winning team, But isn't that something that we haven't seen before? Is Shea put up this many 30-point games? Like, I just don't. Shea is consistency. Like, that's what Shea is. Like, the joke of, oh, he's never going to get more than 31. Like, he's always going to give you 31 exactly. It's like, okay. I would rather have 31 a game consistently than 50 and 15 and then 40 and then 20 and then 35 and then 22 on 28 shots. You know what I mean? Like, Shea's consistency is it. It's not about the stats with Shea necessarily. He has comparable stats. Whoa. He has comparable stats to guys like Giannis, scoring-wise. Giannis is, again, getting better and better since his MVP campaign and when he went back-to-back. And I believe he went back-to-back before he won his title. So it was kind of like Jokic and Giannis went back-to-back MVPs and then got their title. So what I'm thinking here is at the last minute, Luka's going to get this MVP, and then he's going to get one next year. And then the year after that, the Mavericks are going to be NBA champions. That's kind of how I see this playing out because they keep doing this with European stars, and it's really weird. But also, the thing with Luka is weirdly, it feels like this is the year that he kind of needs to win it because, I mean, statistically speaking, he's had MVP caliber years for a while now, but he's just not going to get the love. But again, like, the big thing with the MVP is someone who takes a big leap and their team is like, in the top of the standings. And so Luka, obviously, the Mavs were not in a great spot all year for whatever reason you want to attribute that to. I would say health was a big part of it. But, Luka statistically is like the best player in the league, But it's like Jokic's playmaking is almost underrated again at this point. And again, he's also super high usage. Luka is super high usage. Shea is not super high usage at all, actually. Shea kind of, despite what you would think, looking at his numbers, is really not that big of a ball hog. He gets out in transition. He attacks the rim. He gets a lot of free throws, and as much as people don't like the free throws and they call that unethical, we're going to say the same thing that, people said when you were getting all those Giannis free throws. There were all the Embiid free throws. It's like, well, don't foul him, and he won't shoot at the line. You know what I mean? Shea definitely has a case for it. But those are the four dudes, and any four of those guys getting an MVP, I'd be like, hey, whatever, Those are the four dudes. If Tatum got it, I'd be like, hey, good for him, but did he not deserve that at all? I guess my point is that we're getting to a point in the NBA where teams are just so good and there's so many good players that this award is getting increasingly harder to determine. And there's no consistency with it. It's all willy-washy. It's just whatever. Literally the MVP award is they take some of the best players of the league, they throw something at a wall and hope it sticks. And they're just like, all right, well, we're trying to keep the voters happy. Basically, we don't want to give MVP to a guy that's going to make people mad, which if they did that, I don't know why they would have gave it to Embiid last year, but that's how it feels. They're like, all right, well, who's the public consensus MVP? All right, we'll give it to that guy. Or who has the better narrative out of these four dudes? It's like, no. Define the award. What does valuable mean? To me, it is, a combination of winning, stats, how well you play both sides of the ball. That's really important to me. I think that's kind of the case for Giannis over Jokic and Luka, is Giannis is a way better defender than both of those guys. Like, perimeter-wise, he's underrated as hell. Obviously, we know interior, he's a good defender. He's not scared to jump. He's been postered a good amount of times by Jaylen Brown, but, he keeps jumping with him. So I think that any of those top four guys have a case for it, and I'm not really going to be like pissed if one of them gets it over the other. But it's just like at some point we have to figure out what to do with this award. I've rambled on a way too long about it, but it's really concerning because, you're getting into a dangerous territory where people are going to be able to look at the award and say that it doesn't mean anything. Like the same thing with football. Like, yeah, you got some MVPs. I personally don't think that an MVP sets someone apart if that other person you're comparing them to was an MVP caliber player, if that makes sense. Like, let's say we're talking about LeBron and Harden that year, when Harden won MVP over him. Like, everyone's taking LeBron over Harden. No question. Did Harden have the more valuable contribution to his team? Yeah, because he was their literal entire offense. Like, LeBron was their offense down the stretch, but Harden was the offense of that team. He dribbled the ball every possession. He got everybody their wide open looks. He dribbled between his legs and hit his step back move every single friggin' game 1,000 times. And he was not the most efficient. Obviously, he took a lot of shots, but he averaged 36 a friggin' game, man. Like, that's crazy. So, most valuable does not mean best, and I think we do need to figure out what the fuck it does mean, because if we don't know what it means, we are not going to get anywhere. One thing I wanted to talk about, I'm not really going to go in depth with it too much because I haven't actually watched the show yet, but the show that JJ Redick and LeBron are doing, I've seen a couple of snippets where they talk about different plays and the deep basketball IQ stuff. It's incredible. Just the breakdowns that I've been seeing, it's just, that's the stuff that I'm not super knowledgeable about. Obviously, I didn't play college basketball, so never really played advanced basketball. And it's cool to see these guys who've played in the league for so long. LeBron obviously still doing it. He's going to be 40 soon, and it's whoa. But my thing with that is I've seen a lot of hate on it, and people are taking clips out of context and saying that LeBron is using it to change the narrative. And briefly, one of the things they said was that it was referring to a comment that he made about the Heat team. And, I don't know. I'm not going to excuse the not one, not two, not three, not four. Fuck you, LeBron. He was embellishing it a little bit, right? We can all agree you just formed a super team and then now you're embellishing it and you're oh, well, I wasn't serious. Oh, come on, guys. You guys thought that was serious? He was joking. It's well, yeah, at a point he was, but they built a really, really, really good team. They got Chris Bosh to be the third guy on this team. So for me, I'm well, you had enough to win. What he pointed out, though, he wasn't making an excuse and saying that their bench sucked and that's why they lost. He said, I sucked. Referring to the Mavericks series, obviously, they sucked. My point being with that is that, LeBron admitted that he had a bad finals, and he also made a valid point that because they had the roster was top heavy. He obviously didn't say it perfectly. He could have said it differently instead of coming off in a way that could be taken out of context as to mean that he is blaming the bench. But Dallas was deeper. No question Dallas was deeper. That's why Dallas was able to pull it out. They were up 2-1 in that series, which is insane to think about. They're up 2-1 and Dirk goes nuts, right? Dirk was the best player in that series, no doubt. LeBron obviously did not live up to it. Anyway, the point is that LeBron is not using this to cover his tracks. That's a narrative that I really dislike about LeBron, is he's intentionally trying to do this with his legacy. It's no, dude, it's his PR team. They're trying to get him as much money and in as high of a status as you can. So to me, I'm all right, well, let's just let the guy do his thing and talk about stuff, because I, for one, am really intrigued with LeBron James and all of the experiences he has, and I definitely want to hear all the stories that he has. He is a very good storyteller. I just think that podcast is getting a lot of hate on the timeline, a little bit too much for my liking, especially when you're talking about a podcast that's pretty revolutionary in terms of the two people on it. They're just strictly talking ball. They're talking out of bounds plays, regular plays being run. They're just talking about all of that stuff. The one that I saw the other day was talking about the Gortat screen. Basically, when you seal somebody while someone is driving, you seal their defender and kind of box it. Daniel Tice did that for Jason Tatum early in his career. So, hey, Daniel Tice, I love you. I miss you. You were so fun. I do think that when you look at a podcast like that, I'm not saying that they're going to be perfect, but I think that's something you really should be doing a lot more appreciating of, because it's really, really cool. I'm going to wrap the show about just another set of rumors that keep coming back. Pretty much ever since Donovan Mitchell got traded in the first place. He got traded to Cleveland, and the media has been trying to run him out of Cleveland since he got there. I don't know what their issue is. I mean, I know Cleveland isn't like a great city, and I actually can say that because I have been to Cleveland. I walked around downtown area. I had a lot of fun, honestly. As far as cities go, it's a city. You know what I mean? It's pretty cool. There's obviously good and bad parts of every city, so I don't know. Anyway, not the point. Point is that I like Donovan Mitchell a lot. He seems like a pretty chill guy. I don't know how I feel about him in New York. I think I would be cool with him going to Miami. They would have to give up Tyler Hero. But I like Tyler Hero with Darius Garland more than I like Garland and Mitchell. Not that I don't think Garland and Mitchell can't work together. I just think Hero would not be like worse off as a player if Garland became like the guy, like the facilitator for the team. And I think that Hero can play off the ball a little bit better and give Garland those opportunities. You've got a lot of young guys similar to Boston. I've compared them before where, you know, they had all the talent. They had Tatum Brown, Kyrie, Hayward, Al Horford, Marcus Morris, Marcus Smart, Terry Rozier. Like, you had a squad. I don't know. They couldn't get it to work, and that sucks. It sucks that they couldn't get it to work. And I just feel like Cleveland, especially with their spiral that they've been on towards the end of the year, like, I know they've had a lot of injuries all season, but it does feel like there's just something that's not right there. And I don't know really what it is. I'm going to watch their playoff series in the first round. My personal favorite matchup for them is Orlando. Not that I think they'll do best against Orlando, but I think that would be the most competitive series. I don't really know what to make of the Cavs right now. Anyway, the point is that Donovan Mitchell is a superstar, but he is not in a market that's going to prop him up as one. And I think that, you know, when you send him somewhere like New York, or, you know, I don't know where else he would go other than Miami, honestly. Because he's like he's sort of like Devin Booker. Like, him and Book are similar. Book obviously has the better number two, if we're even going to say KD is the number two there. You know, I don't think Garland Garland is kind of numbers-wise very similar to where Derek White is at. And he doesn't give you the defense that Derek White does. So Garland definitely is not having as great a year as you need out of him. Obviously, injuries have impacted that a lot. And again, like, I get the injury thing, but I don't know. It feels like either the media is really, really pushing for it, or Donovan Mitchell doesn't want to re-sign in Cleveland. But, you know, I don't believe any reports that I see outside of ones from Woj. You know, like, everything else is speculation. It's all reporters who have, like, you know, their own reasoning for trying to put out something like that. So I don't take too much like stock in those types of things. It's just like they do this. Like, they've done this 1,000 times with Donovan Mitchell. They're like, oh, he's going to go to Miami. Oh, he's going to go to New York. I hate the New York thing. I really hate that fit. I don't like him and Brunson on the same team. I don't like it size-wise. I don't like it team development-wise. I don't like it roster construction-wise. Like, that just, I don't like that. And then you say, all right, well, are you going to give up Brunson for him? It would have to be this weird 3-team deal then. Someone else gets Brunson. It's like, nobody's going to get rid of Brunson. Like, I know the Knicks definitely want a championship, but is it really that big of an upgrade, or even an upgrade at all, to get Donovan Mitchell and, like, still have Jalen Brunson there? Because I think Jalen Brunson is probably a better player right now than Donovan Mitchell. I think they're in the same tier, but I would take Brunson over Mitchell for sure. I don't know where they go, because the Cavs definitely need to make at least the second round if they want any chance of keeping Donovan. Oh my God, if they matched up with the Knicks again and lose again, Mitchell is gone. Nobody's going to like this. I already know no one's going to like this, the way that I'm delivering this take, but I really, really think him going to San Antonio makes the most sense. Cleveland needs somebody back. I think you could get back like Keldon Johnson or like Devin Vassell or somebody like that. The Spurs and the NBA in general are desperate to get Wembanyama a competitive team. Like, I saw 1,000 tweets that are like, oh my God, this is going to be like the last week of Wembanyama playing basketball, and then we're not going to see him till October. like, we need to get him in the playoffs ASAP. And I'm like, I agree. I 100% agree with that. I like the Trae Young fit way better. I don't think Atlanta is going to want to do it. Like, if I'm Atlanta and I'm picking between Trae Young or DeJounte Murray, and I'm talking about a basketball team, I'm never taking Trae Young and saying, hey, dude, we're going to go with DeJounte instead. Nobody would do that. That's a pretty big no-brainer to say if you're choosing one, you're choosing Trae. I will say culturally, though, like if you're trying to build a certain type of culture and you're trying to, like a guy like Jalen Johnson, you're like, dude, this guy, he's nice with it. Like, he is pure hooper. And I do like Jalen Johnson a lot. I think he, in a different year, would get the nod for most improved. I'm just saying that if Atlanta was like, all right, well, we can get a higher return for a guy like Trae Young as opposed to DeJounte. And also, you're not going to send DeJounte back to San Antonio. You know, you're not going to get out of DeJounte what you did. Like, San Antonio got a lot more for DeJounte than they would have to give to get him back. Like, Atlanta would not get rid of him for young players and stuff to build around with Trae. So that's kind of my thought, is maybe if they were to go with DeJounte, I don't know that San Antonio necessarily is going to get Trae Young. It's going to be a package. That's what I will say. They're going to have to give up a lot. So with that, I think you have to give up a lot less to get a guy like Donovan Mitchell, tying that back into the original point. And I think that, you know, Cleveland is super young, and then Donovan is like their one, like, a leader. That's their guy. You know, that's a guy who took out the Oklahoma City Thunder. It was him on the Jazz as a rookie, taking out that Carmelo Anthony, Paul George, Russell Westbrook big three. I should put that in quotations, whatever. I don't know. I've never known how to feel about Donovan Mitchell. I've kind of felt about him same thing as Devin Booker. Obviously, Devin Booker is a way more accomplished playoff player. Other than Game 7 last year, was on a tear, dropping 30 and 40 given. Like, the dude was unstoppable. He had an amazing playoff run. And obviously, him and Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton went to the finals, lost to Giannis, which actually the Atlanta Hawks were in the conference finals that year. So that's kind of why I feel like that season was a fluke. When you say, like, a fluke, Phoenix hasn't made a conference finals since, though, if I'm not mistaken. There's reasons to think that it's a fluke. Regardless, if I'm betting on something over the offseason, it's that the Spurs acquire someone to pair up with Wemby. I don't know what San Antonio is going to do, but I guarantee you that a player like Donovan Mitchell is going to be on the move. There's no way he stays in Cleveland unless Cleveland somehow makes it to the conference finals or the finals, which I would say big fat chance of that happening. In conclusion with the Donovan Mitchell thing, I like Donovan Mitchell. I like him a lot. I think that he would be great in Miami. I think he would be great in San Antonio. I think he would be great in a lot of places. I just don't really know what other teams could use him. Obviously, any team would be like, oh, for free, we'll put him here. But, like, you have to talk about what you're giving up. You have to talk about roster construction. And I just don't think New York is a great fit. Kind of feels like Miami, or he's going to go to a really bad team. And that bad team is obviously going to be a lot better with him than not having him. So it'll work out. Before I wrap the show, I just wanted to recap that thought. When the media is trying to force someone out of a small market team, like they do it to Giannis too, actually. And honestly, if Giannis went to New York, that I could be like, okay, oh man. I don't think they're ever going to get rid of the guys that are part of that, like, power friendship team. If anything, I would expect the Knicks to go get somebody like McHale, although I don't know that I ever see the Nets just sending him right over there. Who knows? I really don't know what the situation with Donovan Mitchell is. I just think if you're New York, I don't know, that feels like a really risky experiment, and if that doesn't work, you know, like, it's kind of scary. If anything, actually, him going to Brooklyn would be really cool. Like, if they found a way, not that they would need someone like Claxton, but maybe they could get McHale instead, and then you have McHale in the second option, and then Garland becomes your first with Mobley, and that's kind of your 1-2-3 punch, and then you've got Coro and Allen there too. I mean, I'm sure it wouldn't be just McHale for, you know, Donovan straight up, but that could be interesting if he went to the other New York team. I could definitely get down with that. Donovan Mitchell would look really good in the Nets jersey, and then the Nets would be a lot less screwed than they currently are. Maybe they give up Cam Johnson and McHale, and they just send both of them to the same spot again together. I think both those guys would do pretty good in Cleveland, so I don't know. It's all just food for thought. I just hate when the media, like, tries to push a star out of a location. That rubs me the wrong way, and that's really all I was trying to say. Well, I've been droning on for quite a while. I am going to wrap the show here. I think we covered a lot of interesting topics. Obviously, we've got our wonderful email, rpbsubs@gmail.com. If you ever want to email me anything, I'll talk about it on the show. Again, credit to Motown Noah for that idea. And then also, I do have Instagram and Twitter down there too, somewhere. So if you ever want to follow those, you'll see tweets about me playing Troydan and beating him in MLB The Show and things like that. So if you ever want to be updated, I tweet a lot. Instagram, less so, but if I actually got followers on there and people that cared, I would put content out there too. Twitter's more of a natural thing. I don't have to force myself to use that. I get sucked into it. So that's where I'm going to wrap the show. If you enjoyed it, I'm really, really glad. If you actually made it to this point, congratulations. That's going to do it. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.